So, Tom, it's been an epic week for the beginning of tech earnings season. We've seen tens of billions of dollars of market cap lost from Amazon and Apple and gained by Facebook, particularly. What's going on out there?
Well, I think last year was the year of the FANGs. Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, let's get that right. Some of those doubling in value. And this year we've seen a lot of that unravel, apart from Facebook, which had a strong reaction to its earnings. Apple's been in the doldrums for some time, which we can talk about a bit later. But tell me what happened with Facebook.
So I think what's interesting with the same forces is affecting both Facebook and Apple, but in very different ways. The smartphone market has become saturated, extremely mature in developed markets, which is where most of the big advertising budgets are. And so while iPhone sales have started to taper off, there was basically zero growth, less than 1% growth in iPhone sales in the holiday quarter, which is supposed to be Apple's most lucrative. And now Apple is saying that iPhone sales will almost certainly go down for the first time ever in the current quarter, which ends in March. So Apple's not selling as many phones, but the fact that there are so many iPhones out there, as well as Android devices, is hugely lucrative for Facebook, which now gets more than half of its income from advertising on mobile devices and has more of its users on mobile devices than ever. And it's making more money out of them more than ever, whether that's across the main Facebook app or increasingly Instagram and very soon WhatsApp as well, as it opens its messaging app up to businesses. So very different pressures for the two, but Apple's stock price is declining because people are worried the iPhone will never grow again.
And yet you've just identified what Apple says is the secret business, their services business, which is going to power on through. The same factors that you say Facebook's benefiting from, Apple say they should benefit from too. Huge installed base, lots of steady, reliable, recurring revenue from selling Angry Birds.
Yes, games and other apps, the App Store and Apple Music and all those things. Apple posted an extra sort of slide that it doesn't usually disclose, one of which has had one big number, which was 1 billion, because Apple now has 1 billion active devices that tap into its App Store or Apple Pay or its various kind of internet services every quarter. That doesn't mean there are 1 billion individual Apple customers. So I think analysts would quite like a sort of unified number, which would be along the lines of what Facebook reports. But the message that Apple was trying to convey, as you say, is don't value us like a hardware company, value us like an internet stock and rate us like Facebook. And that gets you a much more racy earnings multiple and would mean that Apple would see its share price appreciate an awful lot, in spite of the fact that the revenue growth there is still some way behind.
And the market said, forget it, we want more iPhones.
Yes, they want more iPhones. So everyone's basically written off this year for iPhone growth now. All eyes are on the iPhone 7 and whatever else might come next.
I mean, it seems like Apple's trying to be more of a mature company in highlighting this division and making the case for a higher multiple. And what it's done with buybacks over the last couple of years is the same sort of grown-up company behavior. But at the moment, it just isn't winning in the market.
Yeah, they've said that they're going to pay back $200 billion in dividends and buybacks. I think we would expect them to update that at some point in April, which is the time of year that they usually address this. But a large portion, I think, of the earnings growth is accentuated by the fact that they're reducing their stock count, which is helping to push things up in that department. But they are also, at the same time as investing an awful lot of their cash into buying back stock, really hiking their R&D investment. And Tim Cook said on the earnings call that they are not going to pull back. They are not going to retrench on expansion in places like China or in new technologies.
As you've kindly introduced your own scoop there.
Yes,
deftly,
immodestly. So we reported that Apple has already assembled a very large team of people working on virtual reality and augmented reality technology. It's made a string of acquisitions, including the most recent one that we disclosed is Flyby Media, which does things that are slightly complicated to explain with machine vision and 3D positioning, but basically would be very useful in a virtual reality type headset along the lines of what Facebook is doing with Oculus Rift and what Microsoft is doing with HoloLens. So that's coupled with the car project, which lost its team leader recently, but is still underway. There are obviously new platforms that they're hoping will either extend or replace the iPhone. The question is how soon they come through, because it doesn't look as though the Apple Watch or the Apple TV is moving the needle just yet.